Hi, this is a section of the Gramp Fire channel where I talk about things that have impressed me that youth have done. And I call it the Gramp stamp. That's the playlist title where I give them a stamp of approval from a grandpa. So I recently went with a youth group and I was in the mountains above Oregon. We went on Tupan Trail up to Eagle Cap Mountain, came out down by Wallowa Lake in Joseph. It was not a loop trail, it was a straight through trail. Anyway, this young fellow was afraid to go. He didn't want to go. As a matter of fact, he tried to resist pretty badly, asked his mom not to make him. But we eventually prevailed upon him to go, encouraged him, told him we'd be there right with him. And as luck would have it, it rained all the way in for several miles. And then the first night was pretty good, but the second night we just got, it was like 3 hour rollers of thunder that were just crashing and banging. Woke up the next day, his stuff was wet. Several of the party's stuff was wet. And we determined that we were going to walk out that day, a long walk, about 14 miles total, because the weather wasn't going to clear. And without some sunny aspects of the day, we weren't going to be able to dry stuff out. So rather than risk hypothermia or that kind of a thing, we opted to walk out. But this young fella, his name was Bryson, kept turning around to me because I had twisted an ankle and had a couple of things wrong with my leg. I was leading a horse who was carrying a lot of gear. And he kept turning around to me and he kept saying, "Hey, do you have enough water?" And I said, "Hey, I'm good. You just keep on going." Turned around again another half mile later. "You haven't drank anything, sir. Do you need some water? I've got some water." And he kept doing this. Finally, with about 8 miles left, I said, "Bryson, how much water do you have that you're trying to share?" He said, "About 3 cups." And I said, "Hey, listen, I've got a filtration system. I can stop at all these streams or lakes that we're passing and I can get some." I said, I appreciate that so much. And I said, for you to even think about that. And I said, but 3 cups isn't very much for you to get to where you're going. He says, "I'm not worried about that." He said, "I'm worried because you haven't drank yet." So I explained to him that I had taken a lot of water in just before we started and was doing fine and that I could certainly stop if we needed some. But I thanked him over and over again. Anyway, Bryson is 16, not your typical kid, and mainly because of something like that. And his concern was to look back over his shoulder at an adult who was hobbling along and worried about my water intake. So, Bryson, you get the Gramp stamp today.